up here. We got one mayor coming up here too. Let's see. I call to order the Tuesday, November 1st Board of Public Works and Utilities. I have time is 6:36. We'll start with a roll call. Mayor Kim Smith. Here. Alder Larry Jurassic. Present. Jared Holter. Here. Sabrina Steger.
Here.
And I am Alder Steve Knott, and I am also present. I also want to note that in the room with us today is Alder Stokes, and we have on the distance technology, we also have Alders Wolf, Stevens, and Smith dialed in as well. I'll take consideration and action on minutes from our previous meeting.
Move to approve?
Second. Move to approve previous minutes by Mayor Smith, seconded by Alder Jurassic. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are passed. Next is public input. If you would like to provide public input, you'll be limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and your address. Is there anyone who would like to provide public input? First call. Or anyone on the phone? No. Second call for public input. Third and final call for public input. Public input is closed. Next is consideration of possible action on the following items, starting with number 4, the City of Onalaska Snow and Ice Control Policy. Jared.
Thank you. In your packet tonight is the 2021 Snow and Ice Control Policy. It was updated in October of 21. We looked through it and there are very few changes. We had a few streets that have been added since then, but our general goals and objectives for snow and ice control haven't changed. We did not formally update the policy. The policy has been around for, probably 30 years now. It's been a great tool for guiding our snow and ice control policy. With that, I wanted to bring it forward tonight just for review, just because we've got a lot of new elected officials, and it's always good to make sure our goals when it comes to snow and ice control are reaffirmed every year. Basically, in general, it's going through the document. You know, you got 3 classes of streets. We got main streets, residential streets, alleys, and cul-de-sacs. And I would consider cul-de-sacs also kind of part of the residential street network. Basically, going on to page 7 of the policy, one of the largest items that determines our level of service would be, I'm going to quote from the policy here, normally 2 inches of snow or widespread icing of streets is required before maintenance services performed on all residential streets. So typically we won't roll the whole fleet and do the whole city until we have 2 inches of snow. That will depend on, you know, we could get 1 inch one day, 1.5 inches the next, and we probably will plow, but we try and take all those things into account. We do have a lot of situations that not each and every snowstorm is the same or icing event. So, you know, it's not a direct correlation sometimes. We will run our main primary routes, even if there isn't 2 inches of snow. That is something that we do use less staff and do run those just to make sure we've got all the arterials and collectors cleared. Cul-de-sacs, you'll notice that under cul-de-sacs, we have 2 city-owned and 1 rental wheel loader we'll be hopefully purchasing. So we'll have all 3 in our city fleet. Cul-de-sacs, there's over 100 cul-de-sacs within the city. That's something that we've really tried to do a better level of service on over the years since what we had when this policy first started. Anti-icing is a newer area that we've had in the policy for a few years now. We've actually got 3 units that we'll be anti-icing with. So we'll be going out and putting salt brine or additives out before snow or icing events. We've found that it really lessens the bond of the snow or ice to the pavement, so it's easier to get off. We've actually got enough units now where we've been trying to hit parking lots and things such as that also. So we've really found that that's we get a good rate of return on that by doing it. Not only does it sometimes get us so we don't have to come out as soon, but we really see a less salt usage, which directly correlates into budgetary impacts when we're actually performing the snow removal on events. So Basically, that's kind of in a nutshell what is in the policy. We will be posting this. We have it on the city website and we just turn it on every come December 1st or Thanksgiving, we turn it on. So that way then it's there for people to refer to or read if they've got questions. But our city staff, give them a lot of kudos in the Public Works Department and Park and Recreation Department. They do a lot of snow removal too, but all that staff does a great job when we do get snow and ice events. So I guess with that, I'd open it up for questions or if anybody has any concerns they see in the policy.
Yeah, just a couple things I want to bring up here. So the areas that have caused some confusion in the past with the residents, just so, I mean, we have some new alders, just so they know. First off is the prioritization on the streets. There's a method to the madness. Among other things, it involves emergency response, access, things of that nature, you know, with which roads need to be done first. So if there's complaints, just, you know, we can let the citizens know that, I mean, there's a reason why we're doing what we're doing. The 1 to 8 a.m. is that night. So when it comes to alternate side parking, it's actually the next morning is that night, if that makes sense. So I know that's caused some confusion with some citizens in the past. And then the last one is with the sidewalk maintenance. I guess I have two questions and also a comment. This has been contentious. We've had at least one complaint from some of the citizens on being charged to do snow removal on their sidewalks every year I've been here anyway. It's reoccurring. They're notified by putting a hang tag on the door. So it's a visual notice that they actually get. And there is a certain amount of punitive nature to what we're doing because we can't become the city's snow removal for sidewalks. We'd have to, you know, double the size of the Public Works just to have snow removal in the winter. But we have talked about whether or not we should ever allow exceptions, and thus far we have not. At least since I've been here, we have not. We came close on one occasion. They have to be exceedingly rare and for a very compelling reason, such as I was unable to clear the sidewalks because I was in the hospital on an emergency. I took an ambulance and I was gone for 48 hours. You know, something along those lines. Okay, maybe we can make an exception, but it's very dangerous to make exceptions for more mundane items because we're setting new standards. It makes it very tough on the Public Works. Jared, with the snow and ice removal from public sidewalks, we talked that we have 24 hours. Is that also for 2 inches of snow or more?
So the city ordinance states that snow and ice must be cleared from a sidewalk within 24 hours, whether it's a half an inch or any accumulation at all. You are allowed to put down typically it'd be sand or salt or something just to
De-icing.
aid in traction on the sidewalk would be.
Okay. And then the last one I have is they have 24 hours after snowfall to remove it. And then we notify an offender. How long do they have before we come in? That's not in here.
So typically we will card, we are allowed by city ordinance to start clearing 24 hours after the end of snowfall. Typically we will go out the next day or even the day after, depending on the weather conditions. And then from the time we card the individual, we try to give them 24 hours, but sometimes, you know, we may card them at 10 a.m. one day and we may go back the next morning and start at 7 a.m. So as a general rule of thumb, we try for 24 hours, but sometimes it ends up being a few hours less, but they're already over. So by then it's going to be 48 to 72 hours since it actually quit snowing.
Okay. Do we want to be more specific in that page 9, bottom paragraph on sidewalk maintenance in the winter on the FAQs? Do we want to include that or not?
We can add that. Yeah, we can add that.
Okay, just to be very clear on, you know, now you've been warned, you've got to move. Yeah, so, all right. Are there any other, yes, Jared, or sorry, Larry.
Yeah, I was one of those offended ones last year. Is there any way of posting that notice on the garage door instead of the front door? problem is that most people in the wintertime don't use their front door.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, we
what
could
happened
get
to
something
me
that
was-
sticks possibly, but that's a hard, difficult thing too.
Right.
You know, and then it's you know, where do we stop? I guess that's the thing I've had is where do we stop trying to alert people? Because we had one individual that came in with that concern last year. It said they didn't see it. And we actually take a picture. We take a picture before we do it. We take a picture when we card it. So we stand at the sidewalk, take a picture of it, and you can see the green tag from the sidewalk. It's that big and obvious, but
And see, the problem I have is I'm on a corner lot. I had my front was all done, the side was all done, but then the winds came up and filled in my side. And I don't have windows on that side of the house, so you can see. But yeah, I got it straightened out.
Yeah, they also take time, date stamp on of photographs on the sidewalk as well, that it's not cleared. So that goes into record. So. Any other comments, questions? Okay.
Motion that we accept the policy the way it's written.
I'll second. Motion to accept / file the snow and ice control policy. Motion made by Larry, seconded by myself. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, item number 5, East Avenue Roundabout Project, Professional Engineering Services Amendment number 1. Jared.
in your packet tonight, there is the supplemental agreement for amendment number 1. If you go down under the amended task 6, the lighting design. As I brought forward to the last Board of Public Works meeting, we actually did not take any action because we could not take any action to get the reimbursement. But in that time, we had had the engineer change the plans so the city could purchase the equipment. And then we were getting close to the submittal of the specifications and plans to the DOT for the project. So time was at a crunch, so we had them do that. Then we found out that we couldn't get reimbursed a few days later. So we had to find another plan. So now we had the plans revised, so they will have temporary lighting. So if we do not get the lighting delivered, the contractor will be required to put up temporary lighting, so we will not be delayed in opening of the intersection. We really wanted to make sure we met our timeline because that timeline for completion is right at Salute to the 4th, and we did not want to have the Salute to the 4th have that intersection closed. So that is part of the reason for the engineer. They actually changed the plans 3 different times in 2 weeks. So that's the reason for the adjustment. I feel it's justified with what the scope of work that they had to do and the timeline they had to complete it. And we do have money in the 2021 capital improvement budget to cover the overage, and that's where the funding was for the original design work.
$2,985.
Correct, yep.
I move that we approve amendment number 1 in the amount of $2,985 with the funding to be as Jared described.
Second,
Okay, motion to approve $2,985 for amendment number 1 by Mayor Smith, seconded by Sabrina. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is the 2023 capital improvements budget. Starting with sub item A, review and consideration of projects to be included or deleted from proposed 2023 capital improvements budget. You'll notice that you have a new addition in your packet from the fire department where he has a list of options for radios, both near term and or far term. And he also has a long-term needs list, if you will, included in there too. And that's something new. That long-term needs list is more information for you, so you'll know what's coming in the out years. But if you have questions, of course, Chief can answer those. So we have in front of us the capital improvements projects proposed that's been updated, where we have lineouts from items that this committee has already decided that we should not move forward based upon limited resources. Then further, Sabrina has gone through and you'll notice that she has some additional columns. You've got, out of all the items that remain, what is eligible for bonding, and that's a total of $3,158,333 worth of projects. And then what projects cannot be eligible for bonding, and therefore we would need other borrowing. And that total so far is $1,260,087. So at the beginning of this process, we had mentioned that we wanted to try to come in around the 3.25 to 3.3 range for bonding. And we were talking about 600 to 750,000 for other borrowing needed based upon the use of ARPA funds in accordance with the plan that the board passed last year, which of course we can always change. Since then, we've also been given options for looking at legacy projects. I think what I'd like to do is to do the bonding piece first and then go into other bonding or other borrowing to include potentially the legacy piece. And we can always go back to bonding if we need to then too. So the reason I'd like to do that is the bonding is right now we're actually under what our goal was. So everything that remains on our recommended list falls within our parameters before we started. But I would like to consider adding a $150,000 project for parks. Talk to Dan, we know that we have, I believe it's 13 parks that were all purchased in the same year. Is that correct? Yes, I'm getting the nod. And those are all kind of coming up to where they're becoming a maintenance and a sustainment issue, and they're going to all come up all at once. So we really need to start addressing that. So considering that we still have room, I'm recommending for, open for discussion that we add $150,000 onto parks to do one park total improvement out of those 13 old parks. And I'm thinking he was saying he might have to dip into some of his parks fund too to do that. Is Dan on phone?
He was at the county board. We were at the county board meeting, Amanda, Dan and I just left to allow myself time to get here and they are on their way. So he'll be coming.
Okay, then why don't we table that?
We had to because of the Omni Center request from the county.
Okay,
And that did make it to the next level, our request.
good.
So.
All right,
that's-
well, then scratch what I just said. Why don't we talk about how we think we should use ARPA money and in conjunction with the legacy projects list. I know that there was going to be a legacy project tour that I was not going to be able to make anyway. I was out of town, but I understand that got canceled.
Yeah.
So,
Just basically, we had it on Tuesday,
yeah,
the same locations that were gonna go for legacy, so they canceled the legacy tour.
okay. I do, we do have printed of what it is that's options that are out there. I'm still of the mind personally that we should stay to the plan that the Common Council voted on last year, which was to use our ARPA money to offset what would normally be short-term higher interest borrowing. In which case we would have to discuss eliminating several of these other borrowing needed projects that are still on the list as well. But that is potentially directly in competition with these legacy projects, although I would also like to point out that pretty much all of them could also be bonded. And I'm wondering, why we would not just put them into the out years for the capital improvement projects proposed starting in 2024, just like we do with every other project that could be bonded. Mayor, did you want to chime in? I know this is something that you have strong
Sure.
feelings on.
Yeah,
too.
and we've discussed it before, but
Yeah,
I mean, I guess my position, I don't support in general terms. I mean, money is money, right? But in general terms, I don't think that dedicating the ARPA money only to eliminate short-term borrowing does not put the city in a better position overall. I think that short-term borrowing is a tool that we've used, admittedly greater over time, but our previous finance director, who was very conservative financially, as we well know, found that as a way for us to overcome a lot of the budget restrictions we have. And so some of those projects that maybe make it into the capital improvement budget now, but aren't eligible for bonding, are things that if we were able to, we would have them as part of our operating expense and our levy. They're things that our community needs. And looking at using the ARPA funding to eliminate that is having really only a short-term effect on the financial outlook of the city. It is, saving us money, but we're not really getting anything extra for it, I guess you could say. And it isn't improving. I mean, we have an excellent bond rating, and how we use this money isn't going to change our bond rating. We're not going to get a better bond rating. And just looking, I want to turn to Sabrina for the financial details next, but looking at, I think with the remaining money right now, we have earmarked $650,000 for ARPA, which would leave $580,000 to be determined potentially for the legacy project. And just doing a little bit of math with Sabrina on the balance from just looking at other borrowing needed, total is $1,260,000. Just looking at that number and subtracting the $6,500,000 of ARPA funds that are earmarked, that leaves $610,000, rounding it off. I had Sabrina do a projection on that, and that wouldn't, it wouldn't affect our taxpayer at all this year. And next year, it would affect taxpayers by 5 cents per 100,000 on their tax rate for next year. So, I think when I'm looking at these projects that we would potentially be eliminating from the budget as compared to next year's taxpayers paying 5 cents per 100,000, I think, or per
5 cents per thousand.
thousand, sorry.
You said 100,000. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I misspoke. Thank you. That's why we have Sabrina on the sidelines. So, I just really think the value of these projects exceeds that. And I think that we should consider, give consideration to not being fixed on only spending, either keeping how we spend the ARPA funds and also what projects we're funding for this year. So maybe Sabrina can fill in any gaps of.
Sabrina, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to add that I think we had a discussion regarding the equipment replacement fund, and ideally, in a perfect world, we'd have bonding and then we'd do everything else in our operating budget. So then we wouldn't have to short-term borrow. That's just not that's just not possible the way the operating levies are set up. We can only increase by a certain dollar amount. For our non-operating levy, like our debt levy, we can increase as much as we want until we get to our debt limit, which I'm not saying we should do that. That would not be responsible fiscally. But borrowing it around that 3.5 every year, some years were 3.7, some years were lower than that. Last year, we were very conservative and we budgeted 2.75. So we were very fiscally responsible last year. I don't want to get us away from, not being fiscally responsible, but I do kind of agree with the mayor in that, $3.5 million 5 years ago is not going to buy us the same things today that $3.5 million can buy us. I know we try to stay, I said this year to stay between 3.2, 3.3, thinking we might get to 3.5. But in regards to borrowing short term, it doesn't hurt our bond rating as long as our total bonds that we borrow stay within a certain dollar amount. as the mayor mentioned, we will never be an AA1 bond rating. We are AA2. The county is an AA1. They're much larger than us. They're have a larger equity balance, so they can be an AA1 bond rating. I want us to stay at an AA2 and continually to be fiscally responsible. We will do that. But I guess I'm under the opinion that if we do need to go over 650,000, if we want to use the remaining dollars for a legacy project, that I would be fine borrowing short term to get us to around that 3.5 number.
So with 3.5, you're talking combined with other borrowing and the bonded?
Yeah, so I would do our bonded and then short-term borrowing. I'd be okay if those two numbers combined were 3.5 million.
Okay. The payments on the short term have to all be made in 5 years. So it's not just the interest rate, it's going to be the payment amount will be substantially higher as well, because you have to get it done in a shorter period of time.
Yep.
So how that plays out on the balance on getting to 3.5 million certainly will have an impact on the budget.
It won't affect our operating budget. It affects essentially the mill rate. And as the mayor said, doing a calculation of that, it won't affect the mill rate for 2022, but it would affect the mill rate, or sorry, 2023, but it would affect the mill rate in 2024 by the 5 cents per $1,000.
So are you recommending that we spend out the ARPA this year then? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm recommending that we stick with the 650,000 recommendation and possibly do some short-term borrowing to be able to do more of that $1.2 million of projects.
But then I guess I thought I was hearing that the other remaining 580 is what you're looking at going over to a legacy project. Is that not what I understood? I mean, did I understand it incorrectly?
So that could be earmarked for the legacy product.
Yeah,
Which would spend it out is what I'm getting at. Yeah,
Correct.
so the ARPA would
yeah.
be gone.
I guess it's different words, but yes.
Yeah, and I think it's important that whatever the legacy project is, that we are mindful of that those dollars have to be spent by the end of 2024.
Roger that, yeah. Larry, do you have any comments?
From my standpoint, 5 cents is basically nothing. That's what I'm looking at right now. I mean, it'd be what, $50 for 100,000?
It would be, if you had a $200,000 house, it'd be about $10.
Yeah.
Yeah, ARPA can't be used for tax reduction anyway, so that's not, can't really be part of the equation here. It's just a matter of whether or not we're gonna be saving on short-term borrowing.
We do save, and I given Aldernott that information, by not doing short-term borrowing, we do save money in regards to, we don't have to levy for for that additional debt. But it's saving the taxpayers dollars because the mill rate stays down. But it doesn't affect our operating levy.
And how many other short-term loans do we previously have out then?
So for several years, I want to say I think it started in 2014. I'll look to Jared. I don't know if he can agree or disagree with that. I want to say they started doing short-term borrowing in 2014, maybe even 2012. I can't remember exactly. I could look it up for you. But they would borrow every year. And then we stopped that in 2022. So we didn't do any short-term borrowing in 2022.
And
Okay, so we got what? The other short-term?
There's three
they're
that are,
paid off by now.
or two that are still sitting out there.
Okay, that's what I meant.
I was proposing that we continue down that path and not do short-term borrowing and use the ARPA to offset that
That was the council last year. Yeah.
last year. Roger that.
Yep.
So, I mean, these are all valid arguments. I'm still kind of a view that we continue down that path. I mean, in order to move forward though with our discussions, I think our committee needs to make a decision on whether or not we want to use the 650-ish for 2023 projects and the 580 for legacy, or if we want to use the 650-ish for 2023 projects and the 580 for 2024 projects, meaning continuing with the will of the council from last year. So obviously, I think we know where two of us stand. We'll just go around. What do you think? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just, we just have to decide how we're going to do this so we can move forward. So,
Oh, Jared, I won't say.
yeah, I was going to get to Jared.
I think,
too, but yeah.
if we agree that the 650 is the right amount to use for ARPA funds toward this year, the 2023 proposed capital improvements project, and leave the remaining balance, it could be decided in the future whether it goes to a legacy project or is used in 2024's capital improvements program. If that's the number you want to make sure that you have, you see, we wouldn't have to necessarily make a decision tonight whether it would go toward a legacy project.
Well,
Unless you plan on using all 1 point, whatever the ARPA balance is toward this budget tonight.
I don't think that was the case. Yeah.
So,
Here.
I think one of the problems with that though, Jared, is and that, not to say that we can't do that, but if we decide we're gonna wait until next year about even earmarking for the legacy, is that we wouldn't be able to complete a lot of things. Oftentimes just the design costs a large amount, and then to try to go forward with actually building something, we'd be almost better off if we did decide to go down the legacy project, at least use a portion of it in 2023 with the intent of the balance being used for 2024. I don't think we can just wait. If we are going to do a legacy project, I don't think we can just wait indefinitely to decide that. But I mean, I guess you would know better than me. 'cause
no, I
that's your-
agree with that statement that time is of it seems like it's not, but time is of the essence. You've only got 2 years left. And if by the time you design something, bid it out and get construction, especially with the industry standard we're seeing now is long lead times on things, we're going to run up to a wall. Should we add a 88th project and call it the legacy project and decide if we want to put it into the capital improvements budget? I guess that is a possibility too.
One question and I've got you. So with the ARPA, does that have to be committed in 2024? Or does it have to be spent by 2024?
We spent.
Spent, okay. Amanda.
I guess I apologize. I'm coming in late. I was at the county working on our Omni Center request. But my understanding is that the Common Council voted to earmark a set amount of money for a legacy project. And that there was going to be further discussion at this council meeting as to how they wanted to move that forward. And so I guess is the goal here to essentially to go against that motion last week, or what
Guess
is?
That's not how I understood it, but okay. So you're saying that is done.
Yes.
Okay, all
The
right, that
council-
changes the whole conversation then. Okay. So then it's just a matter, I think that maybe that's what we need to do is just add a line number in there that says legacy project and you put in, 580,000 or whatever, yeah.
Mandy, do you agree with that we should?
I think so. And then I guess if it's council's will to do something different, they could make that decision next week or 2 weeks from now.
Okay, all right. So there is now a line item number,
We should probably make I would make a motion that we add line number 88 labeled a legacy project. And it would be under general fund 580,000 with a total cost of 580 with the other less other sort, or where are we gonna put the ARPA funds at, Sabrina, in the line here?
And the others, I'll keep it in the other sources.
Other sources, okay.
I'll just have to label
Okay,
which ones.
And 580,000 would come out of others, less other sources.
okay.
Second,
All right, motion made by Jared, seconded by the mayor to add line item number 88, which is labeled Legacy Project, and $580,000 being dedicated to it. Any discussion?
Does it have to be marked then as ARPA funds or anything?
It doesn't have to. We can have that discussion too, because in theory, you could have some bonding, but I think the intent here is that we want to use up the rest of that. That was what the common council said. But we could always move it forward to the common council with the final budget saying that, 200,000 will come from bonding and, whatever. I mean, I think that the intent of the motion was they want a legacy project. So how we get there is, probably still open to a little bit of wiggle room. All right, any other discussion? No. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. So let's go back then. I see Dan's here too, to what I wanted to go, how I want to advance on this in first. So let's talk about eligible for bonding projects, which is $3.158, $3,158,333 as of right now from what we moved forward from last week. As I mentioned earlier, that leaves us some wiggle room of about 150K-ish or so that we can increase. And I'm recommending that we have a discussion on maybe doing this to where we can improve one of those 13 or replace one of those 13 parks. Discussion with Dan is 150,000 would get us most of the way there, and he could complete it with some of his own funds. Dan.
Thank you. Yes, in conversations with Alder Knott, the discussion was playground replacement. My recommendation when he came forward with roughly 150,000 is we really need like 200,000 to go with the playground so that we can put the pour and play surfacing underneath, spending roughly 100,000 for the playground, 100,000 for surfacing. And we do have funds in our park development fund that could be allocated for this. And so, my recommendation is that the other sources could be the 50,000 from our park fund.
This was for just one park?
Correct.
Which park was that?
This would, my recommendation, we'd move forward with the replacing the playground and amenities at Thomas Farm, which is on the north side of town. We've been a number of development up there. And it would make the most sense. This was a playground that was also installed back in 1996, and it would go, get us in that direction of making that replacement happen.
Does anyone have any hands up on the phone at all? I mean, I know they're not members of the board, but we have all the alders present.
There's not.
Okay. Mayor.
Do any of these parks have special needs equipment that will be?
So the biggest thing we struggle with in our parks, all of our playgrounds and things have certain amenities and transition stations, so individuals with special needs can utilize them. We struggle with the surfacing piece. Wood chips, they decay, continuing to add wood chips. So that is why I really want to make a push that we replace it with pour in place rubberized material. So then the entire site, we don't have to go back on an annual basis, continuing to replace wood chips and things, that we can do this and it should be good for, 10, 15, 20 years.
Thank you.
Mayor.
I just wanted to ask, well, first of all, say, I think that Thomas Farm is a good choice for a park if we're going to pick one, due to the added population that's come into that area. But then just for clarification, so you're saying if this is adopted, 150,000 would go into the eligible for bonding column, and then the additional 50,000 would be from the parks
Park fund,
fund? Okay,
yes.
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second.
Motion to add on a park improvement project for bonding at $150,000 with up to an additional $50,000 coming from the Park Development Fund. Motion was made by the mayor, seconded by Sabrina. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So what that does then is out of all the eligible for bonding items that carried over from last meeting, plus this, that's going to bring us up to $3,308,333. Okay. Ugh. So now comes, I think, the real challenging portion, and that's the other borrowing needed where we cannot use eligible for bonding. I would,
Stephen,
yes,
I have one more thing on
Yes.
this other section. I'd like to suggest, unless someone says otherwise, there's $54,000 currently budgeted in the library. And we do have
yes.
$156,388 in the library fund.
thank
I
you.
think that $54,000 can be funded from other sources, the other source being the library fund.
I absolutely agree.
So
Thank
that
you.
would add back in 54.
Yeah, and we had briefly discussed that last time too. So thank you again for bringing that up. Yeah, so those are eligible for bonding. Yeah, I would actually remove those two. I would also agree with you on that, Mayor.
I don't know if we need a motion for that because it's just changing the funding source, right?
Well, yeah, we just have to make sure we're tracking the bonding numbers in.
I'd prefer a motion if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we move the $54,000 for the two library items to be funded from the library fund.
It'd be line 70 and 71.
Yes, items 70 and 71, the boiler replacement to high efficiency and the parking lot to improve the ADA
A
slope.
second.
Motion made to move to approve the boiler replacement and parking lot number 70 and 71, but to move them off of bonding and over to other sources. That motion was by Mayor and seconded by Alder Jurassic. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So that brings us down to a total bonding request for 2023 of $3,254,333.
Wait, what was the total again?
$3,254,333.
Okay, so. Let's talk other borrowing needed. We're going to have to definitely make some difficult choices tonight. Because if we go with the full $1,260,087 that are in there, that would use up actually not only the 650,000 that we have dedicated to the ARPA money, but it would be an additional 610,000 and change as well. So that would require us to go into short-term borrowing because the other 580,000 at this point anyway is dedicated. Now, there's other ways to work that, Mayor.
I think Danwick has something he wants to say.
Sorry, I would like to address project 53. It's a community park project, the playground and batting cage. So this past Sunday, I met with representatives from the Lions Club. And that is the site that they would like to allocate for the inclusive playground that they are hoping to fundraise for. So if that project is staying in the budget, I'd like to see if we could allocate that, the 100,000 that playground to Coach Light Green's playground.
To say that again,
So
100,000 to where?
For a project 53, instead of saying community park, I would like to allocate that to Coach Light Green's playground.
Okay.
And then we would be coming forward as the project of the Lions Club is looking at, fundraising that entire, project that they have planned. So we wouldn't want to do any type of playground in that location because that would be replaced with the inclusive playground stuff there. So that's what I'd like to do.
So if they're trying to fundraise for that, do we need that?
We don't. They're we may come back next year, depending on how their fundraising goes.
Okay,
But they have very, high hopes and are ready to hit the ground running with funding for that project. So I would just like to recommend we move that to Coach Light Greens for 100,000.
Remove it.
And then you could take the batting cage portion off because we don't need that there. So that'd be 15,000. So I'm just requesting project 53 would be 100,000.
Well, if you're the director of that department, if you're saying that you think you can cover it through other means, and I mean, does anyone have any concerns, Mayor?
I have a question. So looking at Coach Light Greens and your park fund of the 100,000, could some of that be funded through the park fund dollars?
There's been very little development in that area. I mean, I think we probably could take a portion of it to help with, we'd look at doing the pour in place. I would probably be comfortable at a 75-25 split.
Did
So on-
everyone understand what he said?
So we are moving, just so I'm clear, we're moving 25,000 to other sources. And then removing 15,000.
Okay, so it's not the full 100.
Correct. It'll be 75 out of the CIP, 25 out of the park fund. And then we'll be striking the 15, but that'll be allocated for Coach Light Greens.
So it's a difference of 40K total. That brings us down to 3,114,000. No?
300,
Because it's,
3,214,000.
or 200, yeah, I'm sorry, 214,000.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, I can make the motion for that. I'll make a motion that we move the batting cages off of our listing. That was item 53B. Thank you, Kevin. And then also item 53A, we will put 25,000 to other sources with a remaining of 75,000 to be bonded. And with the intent that that would be Coach Light Greens instead of the community park.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Sabrina, seconded by the mayor. As stated, I'm not going to try to restate that whole thing. Does anyone have any questions on the motion? All right. All right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So again, we're at 3214.3, it's 3,214,333. So we're still doing really pretty good on the bonding piece. Mayor.
Sorry. If the chair doesn't disagree, I would like to ask if any staff or counselors had anything else that they wanted to say to us. I mean, maybe somebody has a recommendation for something they want removed or
Sure.
whatnot, such as what Dan just did.
Out of the bonding.
Yeah, just to see, I mean, we don't have to accept the ask, but we could hear it, or you could choose not to. I guess it's up to the
Right.
discretion of the.
Is there anyone either in the room or online who would like to make any other recommendations for removal?
What up?
Dan.
I'm going to make a reduction. This was a conversation we had regarding the exterior door in the Park and Rec suite. Brian Babish, our buildings manager, is here, but did work with a contractor. We can replace rather than putting the door in, we can put sliding windows in that. And so my recommendation is to take that a number from 27.5 to 17.5.
What line was that?
That is
75.
75.
75, sorry, yeah. 17.5.
Say the number again.
It'd be line item 75 and reduce it by $10,000 to 20 or to 17,500.
Is there a reason why that can't be bonded? That's part of the building.
I sent everything to the bond council and they said no. It's the same thing with the generator. It doesn't really make any sense to me, but we have to go with our bond council, unfortunately.
Okay, well, the generator makes more sense than this because the generator does have a life cycle. This is part of the building. That's bizarre. Okay. Huh. Okay. Well, that reduces by 10,000 the other borrowing needed column. So that makes it $1,250,087. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, let's start having,
We'll make a motion for that too. So I'll make a motion that we bring item 75 down to 17,500. So we have it.
all right, I'll second. All right, motion made to adjust item number 75 from 27.5 down to 17.5. Motion made by Sabrina, seconded by myself. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed. Motion passes. So to get discussion going, I'm going to bring out where I think with my homework, I'm recommending we go. And again, it's just to get discussion going. And then I know everyone else have lists and we can start having a discussion / negotiation with everybody on what the final rate looks like. So my number one priority on other borrowing needed, I believe the top three are probably going to be the same with everybody. They just might have them in different orders, but we'll see. I could be wrong. My number one was the generator. Number two is the marked police cars, which we've already pretty much committed to. Number three was the comprehensive plan. And then I would have to add in a number four there is the unmarked police car, because we've already committed to that as well. So is there anyone here who disagrees that we shouldn't be approving those four?
What is that total?
It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot. Those are all expensive projects.
Give me 1 second. It's 686,000.
What was that?
Give me 1 second. It is.
Should be,
$699,567.
so now we're gonna say, well, we've gone above our desired goal of the 650. And I'm gonna actually recommend we go more, but how we can do that is we've got wiggle room on our bonded area. What was the
Alder
total?
not,
Yes,
I have a
Jared.
comment from Alder Stevens, and I think it's gonna go where you're going.
Okay,
Can I read his comment? Is that okay?
yeah, sure, go
In
ahead.
the chat. Alder Stevens states, if we're good with total borrowing up to 3.5 million, why not shift more to the lower price long-term bonds
Yes,
up to 3.5 million, then not do higher price state trust fund loan, use ARPA to pay for what would have been paid by state trust fund loan, use bonding to cover costs for the legacy project.
exactly where I was gonna go. So good. So yes, I'm thinking that we can take 200,000 of that $580,000 that we've dedicated to a legacy project under new item number 88 and put that under eligible for bonding, which would leave us with 380,000 for other sources. And that would free up an additional $200,000 of ARPA. Is everyone tracking? The end state would be the same. We're going to be spending out the ARPA one way or another. The way it's either by having it with ARPA being dedicated 580,000 or bonding for 200K and ARPA for 380. We're going to have that ARPA spent out and committed for 2023, potentially for a 2024 project, but it's going to be committed now.
Yeah, but it's the assurance that it's gonna be completed by that time, by the 24,
It would have to be, we're going to lose the ARPA.
you know.
So is there anyone who has a concern about shifting 200 over to bonding from the legacy project and leaving that at 380 then with the ARPA?
Guess I would defer to Sabrina on that.
That would put us up to bonding at 3.414 point change 330.
Or Amanda, depending upon.
Yes, Amanda, go ahead.
I guess my question back to you, Sabrina, would be because we haven't chosen a project yet, and just off the top of my head, I don't know that we can bond for every project up for consideration. So I think that would limit the projects to choose from.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We haven't given the legacy projects to our bond council, so I would presume that we could bond for them, but we don't know that at this time. I would presume we'd be able to, but I can't confirm that we absolutely could bond for those.
Well, we could assume some risk. I mean, I don't know. Well, first off, we got 5 projects to choose from. One would think at least one would be eligible for bonding. I think all of them would be myself. I mean, but again, I'm not the bond counsel, so, but yes, Mayor.
I'm willing to consider that. But one other thing I want to bring up is as if we just like called it halt right now, we have, I don't know, $150,000. We haven't funded any capital improvements for the Omni Center at this point. And so I think it's really important that we have some things in there for the Omni Center. Number one, we don't want to let it go. But also, we just came from the county meeting, and one of their concerns is if we're investing $100,000 into your building this year, how much are you investing? And I think that if we turn around and say, well, we're not going to invest anything in it, that's not the message that we want to send to our community or to the county, who are asking to help assist us with some funding.
Agree.
So I would ask that whatever gets decided, that we keep the remaining projects for the Omni Center in.
There's several projects I would like to keep still, but in order to do that, we've got to free up some other borrowing that, or we're going to take short-term debt. Those, I had 2 of the projects on that I was going to recommend we keep with Omni Center. That would make it easier for me, at least, if we could assume some risk and dedicate $200,000 for bonding for the legacy project, leaving $380,000. Now we got a little wiggle room to do other things.
I guess, sorry, I'm speaking out.
Now, go ahead. No.
My question would be back to Amanda, due to the fact that it was approved that we would earmark 580,000. Are we okay to adjust that here, or?
I mean, you're really making a recommendation to the council, and the council was the whole council was the body that earmarked the $580,000. And so I think just to Alder Knott's point, it's how much risk you as the Board of Public Works want to assume. I mean, there's a chance that the whole council may or may not agree with that decision.
I mean, the alternative is that we'll be looking at, I mean, there's things that need to still get done. In my mind, that, you know, that $670 doesn't even address yet. So as much as I do not want to go to short-term borrowing, that would be the only other option if we're not going to assume risk with some $200,000. Yes, Amanda.
I mean, I can't speak obviously for the council, but you know, I think if you can accomplish a legacy project through bonding, we've given the community, you know, the same result through different financial means.
Right.
So I wouldn't personally, as the administrator, be opposed to that plan.
You would be opposed.
I would not.
Would not be opposed. Okay, yeah, got it. For other comments or concerns, I
I
mean,
guess if that's the intent, then I would say we could use even more of the ARPA funds if it is the intent of the council to bond for a project.
but you were saying you really don't want to go over 3.5. This would get us
Borrowing.
borrowing. And if just moving 200,000 will get us to 3,414,333.
For this year, but $200,000, if we bonded for $200,000 this year, and then we bonded for the remaining next year, and we spent out our ARPA funds, I would be fine with that.
Okay, well, this is definitely
What
gonna have to
would
go to
that-
council.
So we'd end up with, our total borrowing would be 3.4.
3.4.
Correct. And 200,000 of it would be set aside for the legacy project so they can get started on it, design work, everything else. And then if the intent is to use the remaining ARPA for that, we could, or next year, we could bond for the additional portion of the legacy project.
I'd be interested in hearing some of the other alders who are on phone or in the room, what they think.
If there's any comments from any of the alders that are on the line,
Nobody? Okay, Leanne.
I think that we should go with the recommendation of Sabrina on that and do the 200,000 in 23 and then look at the rest of it in 24, depending on the situation in 24. Because we don't know that right now, what we're gonna be having. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Tom. I agree also with what Sabrina says. I like that approach, kind of a phased-in approach of, going with Sabrina's recommendation of starting there. And then we still have some wiggle room for next year and using ARPA and also legacy. So I like that approach also.
Okay,
This is Dan Stevens. So, my preference would be to allocate as much of the ARPA funds as we could towards the things that would normally qualify as a state trust fund loan item, as I kind of hinted to earlier. And then try to free up as much as we can to do the larger capital improvement projects, specifically the legacy fund. I know that we haven't really kind of decided on which one. I would probably argue towards the improvements to the community center. I can't imagine that with the construction that's involved, that would not qualify for bonding, although I guess we have to wait to hear from the source. If any chance that we have to do lower interest rate borrowing in favor of, or to do that in lieu of the higher interest rate borrowing, we should really do that. So we're maybe trying to get the best of both worlds. If we might even be able to go a little bit higher than 3.5 with whatever, if we could calculate what the interest savings was from not doing the state trust fund loan. So I just think if we kind of look at, we can model different ways and see what the long-term cost is. And the other advantage to doing this is those things that we could buy that would normally be state trust fund loans. If we use those ARPA dollars, those would be used up and spent now this year. We don't have to worry about losing them if they're unspent. And then the larger projects, call it the community center or one of the other legacy projects. If that's on the bond, we're not worried about losing that money later. So, thank you.
anyone else? So it sounds like we're gonna commit ourselves to a legacy project through bonding, is what I'm hearing. And we are encouraged to use ARPA and probably even spend, I know we talked that too, but I'm hearing, with if I'm interpreting you correctly there, Dan, is, spend more than half of that this year for sure to make sure that we don't run into a problem next year getting rid of it. Mayor.
I'm just thinking about that and knowing the way that this budget goes. We have to try to figure out how we're gonna maneuver that next year. Entering into the capital improvement budget plan, having that large amount in there that's fixed. And then having the council of the mindset where we're gonna still wanna stay at 3.5-ish or whatever. I just have a little concern that we're gonna be back to where we always are, where we're worried about fixing our roads and buying a generator and whatnot, and that the legacy project might not happen because the money won't be there. Sitting there waiting for that project, it'll be gone.
Well, and we can move more over into the bonding now. I mean, if we move 280,000 over to commit it right now, we're still just under the 500K. Or the 3.5 million, I should say. And that would have us committed to almost half of what the 580,000 that we wanted.
Not saying I disagree with it. I'm just, that's my concern. Like when I'm thinking through it, I'm just like thinking, okay, so
Yeah.
next year we're sitting here with the same difficult decisions.
No, I hear you. But again, because we have elections and things can change too, just like, Amanda.
I guess along that same note, if we're under the 3.5, which is kind of where Sabrina has indicated she's comfortable, would you be willing to do half of it this year, at least go up to that 300,000 to bond this year? It's without having dived into these projects, since we don't know which one, we don't really have a good idea of what the design work, what we would be doing in the next year. And so I also would hate us to only bond 200,000 and then end up, ruining a timeline or being kind of put out of sorts because we didn't bond enough in the first year.
So go what you're saying. Go to
That's what I would like to
300,000.
do, because then it'd be like kind of being like pot
300,000
committed.
would be 300. And if my math's still tracking, that would put us up to 3,514,333.
That's correct.
Okay, so we're pretty much right at the 3.5 where Sabrina doesn't want us to go over.
So Sabrina, can you summarize where we're at for eligible for bonding, using the ARPA and other borrowing needed with those totals?
Yes, so we originally came in with 650,000 to leave the 580 for the ARPA project. If we're gonna bond for that, then we could use 950,000 of ARPA funding this year. So right now, that would mean we have to knock off $300,087 of our listing,
Or use short-term borrow?
or use short-term borrow, correct?
And if we use short-term borrowing for that total amount, where would we be at?
For the 300,000.
Yeah, for the 3.5 goal.
So right now we're at 3.5 in bonding. By bonding for 300,000, we're at 3,514,313. So then if we added if we took nothing off the list, we'd be at 3,814,420 with 3.5 being short term. And then
I think okay, that's the part I missed, because I didn't know we were gonna bond the 300,000. I thought we were gonna use 300,000 more of the legacy project money. So how did that?
I guess I'm confused. I thought we were gonna add that to bonding, like we're gonna bond for 300,000 and we're gonna save 280,000 for next year of ARPA funds to be used for the legacy project.
Okay.
So it's kind of a bait and switch thing. We're taking, instead of borrowing short term, we would use that 300,000 bond for that portion of whatever the legacy project's going to be. And next year we would have 280,000 remaining. We will have to make a decision though on that before it goes to the bond council on what that project's going to be. So before the end of the year, there will have to be a decision made on what the legacy project is.
With ARPA, it doesn't have to be in the budget sequence. We can just,
Correct.
yeah. So Amanda.
I think some of the confusion is, if I'm hearing Alder Stevens correctly, I think what he proposed was that we move all of the ARPA money to avoid short-term borrowing and bond for the entire legacy project amount. And so what you are saying is you would leave 280,000 of the ARPA money for next year and bond for 300,000 this year.
And the issue with that is if we were to put $580,000 down for bonding, we'll bust the budget,
Or you'd have to remove items.
or we'd have to remove items.
Bonded.
So, but that gives us some wiggle room if, because with 280,000 still dedicated with ARPA, I mean, in the end, as the timelines all come out, it may be that, well, you know what, we can bond for this and we can put it in the 2023 budget, the 2024 budget. The design is done. We're ready to go. And we can use that ARPA money for something else next year. I mean, this is all flexible, right? This is right now just a plan. And this, you know, we always say plan only survives first contact. So military guys will understand that. Probably our first responders as well.
First round down range.
So, but yeah, so yeah, that was my understanding. It's 300,000 bonded now with 280,000 carrying over into next year. Ostensibly for the legacy project. And again, always subject to change, but right now that's what it is. Yeah.
So then an additional 300 is moved for short-term borrowing?
No, 300,000 is going under the 20-year bonds. So we would be going up to 3,500,000.
Of the 580,000?
Yes,
And 280 would stay with the legacy project.
under ARPA.
300,000 of it would be bonded, 280 would be ARPA.
So the way it would read on your chart, Mayor, just to make this real clear, is on number 88, you'd have eligible for bonding, 300,000, other borrowing needed, 280,000. Correct? Yeah,
And that's ARPA.
and that's the ARPA that's left, which would give us, oh gosh, I gotta go back.
So we're doing a hybrid model to fund the legacy project to still save on interest for this year.
That gives us a total of 950,000 of ARPA available as of right now. Are we all clear? Okay. That's, I'm very comfortable with the way it all shook out because I'm with you, Mayor. There are other projects on here. I haven't even talked radios for fire department stuff yet. I mean, that are really crucial that, you know, we've got to get. And either that means we're either going to have to do short-term borrowing or we use ARPA. But I think what we've done is we've assuaged the desires of the Common Council that we dedicate ourselves to a legacy project. And I think that we've got the monies available either through bonding or and ARPA to make that happen.
Do you want to make a motion for that? Just so-
Okay, I'll make a motion. Sure. So I will move that we add, or actually it would be change line item number 88 to where it says from 580,000 other borrowing needed to state eligible for bonding 300,000, other borrowing needed 280,000.
So still the 580,000.
Yeah.
That was the part where my brain didn't make the connection.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by myself to adjust the financing for I-88, seconded by Sabrina. Any discussion? Chief?
Yeah. we can put
Yes.
it- Yeah, we can put it in that column. Yeah.
Do I need to make a adjustment to my motion then, or?
I mean, you said ARPA for other sources. with
Yeah.
ARPA, so I'm okay
Okay.
with that.
Okay, good to go. Any other discussion? Kevin?
Yeah, just for, with the legacy project, not to muddy the waters, but would we actually have to bond for it this year? We currently have 5 options for legacy projects, but don't actually have a project picked or a total cost, right? Would there be a way on some of the other projects where we say there's a legacy project and just put the 280,000 that we've dedicated for ARPA to it? That money can be spent on design costs, getting it off the ground. We're never going to build a legacy project next year. So you almost be committing the rest of the bonding for next year's cycle, potentially.
I think the intent is that there's room this year in regards to bonding for items that, and due to the fact that's the will of the council to go that route, to keep it to bonding this year. As I mentioned before, there would have to be a decision made before January 1, when we hand this over to Bayard and our bond council. There'd have to be a decision made before then to move on the project, but I think that was the intent there, but I'll let others weigh in.
This month?
It's going to be on the council agenda this month to decide the project.
Okay, so it's a
Before
bond,
We'd have a decision before the public hearing. Okay.
it's a bond committee shuts it down, where are we at then?
We'll have to find the funds.
Yeah.
I imagine that all of these projects we'd be able to bond for. Usually any park and rec type project, we can bond for. So my intent would be that we'd be able to bond for it.
Similar like a procedural question, just to make sure that the way we're going about doing this doesn't cause a problem, because this budget is the one that's gonna go to public hearing. And if, I mean, something at council changes, would we be properly noticed for our public hearing?
We would, because we've got to do it between 10 days and 30 days from the date of the public hearing at the next Board of Public Works meeting. It's got to hit the newspaper because we missed that date one year and had to push the public hearing into January. So if the council makes a decision, I'll work with Sabrina on ensuring the next day we will get that ad placed so it'll meet that statutory deadline. Because we could, the council could, the will of the council could change this budget up or down or delete. Or
Right.
So we want to make sure we have the correct numbers no matter what happens with any project that the
Right.
common council will approve at the next meeting.
They'll also set the date for the budget public hearing at
Yes,
that date,
correct,
so we
correct.
can't notice it before then anyway.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so that changes the available funds for the other borrowing needed column, if you will, for the projects. We've all already pretty much agreed on the first four that I mentioned, which were the generator, the marked police car, the unmarked police car, and the comprehensive plan. So there's obviously will still have to be some further reduction, but not as much. My next, I do want to talk, let's see, where was this under fire? And you've got sheets with what Chief Goody put in the packet. Fire department, okay. Portable replacement. So what he gave us was an option 1 and a 2 that he's recommending. Oh, well, these are bonded though.
They are.
Okay, but there's an addition. Oh, yes, this is how this goes. So he's got option 1, get them all, but both chargers now, option 2, get half of them and 1 charger now. I asked if it would be possible to do an option 3, which is get 1/3 of the radios, which would be 10 plus 1 charger now. And I think that that's something that is doable, but it will increase that cost by $1,436. Chief.
Okay, yes, I did. I was putting together some options for you guys. I also broke down the cost per radio. There seemed like there's confusion in the past. So I did meet with Sabrina, did look at some options, some recommendations, and then of course I met with Alderman Knott and we looked at possibly purchasing 10 radios and 1 charger in 2023. So I would be comfortable with that as long as, once we commit to this, we'd be moving forward with eventually having the 30 radios and 2 charging banks for the batteries.
What's 41,000? Okay. Yeah, so I misspoke. It's not 1,436, would be additional 41,000. So to do that, option 3, where you see portable radio replacement number 43, that new line is 81,436, correct, Chief?
Correct.
81,436, which is an increase on the bonding of another 41,436. And that would be on top of the 35,14. So that's going to bring us up to 3,558,000 and just short of 59,000. Is that still doable? Be 3,550,000.
555, 769.
769, yep.
Yes, that's doable.
I believe it's 81,446,65. Is that correct? Is that what you had?
If 4, 3, it's 4, 4, 6, you said?
Is it 4.6 instead of 4.36?
840990 plus 103675.
I had 81,436 as the total, and then you had 40,000 already on there as a line item, so it's an increase of 41,436.
81,436.
Came up with 81,446.
4, 4, 6.
446.
Okay, well, go 4.46 then. It's $10 more. All right. Mayor, did you have a hand up?
I didn't have my hand up, but I'm still going to insist that we have the Omni Center items in the budget.
Sure. Yeah, we still have more to go. We haven't even gotten to the others yet, but no, I agree. So that becomes 770 now.
Hold or not.
Yes.
Is there, and I know everybody, and I want to speak highly of all the projects that are in here, even especially the ones under the other needed borrowing, and everything. And I agree that, but ultimately we all got to make choices. And is it one that, since we have the 140,000 in there, should it all go to radios and we just wait a year on the command
So-
vehicle?
No, you,
Like,
yeah, go ahead.
if I could bring up one thing, and Jared, you may know this as well. We also have the vehicle in there, which hasn't been discussed at 100,000. I don't know what the intention of this committee was for that 100,000, but I also know that the cutoff dates have passed for ordering vehicles for 2023. So I was thinking about recommending we have monies in 2023, maybe take 60,000 of that 100. And then Jared too, if you're comfortable with that. And I checked with Scott at Ewald, and he thought that'd be a good strategy to have the ability and the funding to order in the fall of 23 for a 2024 vehicle replacement.
Okay.
That wouldn't happen in 2023 because these vehicles aren't out there.
So, and the 60,000 is to get a baseline vehicle that you would then outfit.
So basically the 140,000 that you guys are looking at for those two projects, we could probably
One now.
shift some money from the vehicle, and then we could work in 2024, next year's budget, to equip the vehicle as we're ordering it. I think we'd have a better handle on it, and Jared wants to add to that.
It's kind of the same strategy we put in with the cabin chassis. Once we receive that cabin chassis in a future budget year, what the budget for the plow and the salt brine system and the box and all those things. So it's the same thing. Our lead times are so long on vehicles right now that there's no way you'd have the vehicle until 24 to be able to outfit it anyway.
Yeah, and I just had that email from Ewald today, just because I wanted to confirm what the availability was. And it sounds like that date has passed.
So you're asking that the bonding for the command vehicle be reduced to 60,000, is that what?
Correct.
Okay. So that'll
And
reduce the
then
bonding.
The remainder
orders.
could be shifted over towards the 10 radios.
All right.
So the total stays the same, basically.
Well,
Fairly
yeah, but
close.
we had already updated. So it's 3,515,000 now. 3,515,779. That's what I've got. What do you got?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. But that's bonding again. That's not other borrowing needed. So I think we got fire done then, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's get down to this other bonded. So yeah, we can go,
Can we just start at the beginning? for
Sure,
items
yeah.
That are in the other bonded.
page 1, there are none. Page 2, we've got the cemetery utility vehicle. I'm recommending that we do not do that this year.
In the form of a motion?
Well,
I guess someone's gonna have to just put up a plea if.
so, I mean, we've still got to reduce. We've got too much. There's 1,260,087. We only have 950,000 in ARPA. And unless we're going to go to short-term borrowing on top of spending all the ARPA, which I think we're trying, I don't know. So does anyone want to make their plea for the 13,000 on that's more important than some of the other projects here?
I did talk to staff today. The vehicle that we are using is old. It's past its prime, it's a hand-me-down from Parks. But I think there's usually a toolcat. If we had to, we probably switch stuff around for a year. I mean, we'll make it work. But I would say that you can see that's already been there. This will be the third year it's been cut out. So I would hope in the future we got some legs on getting it replaced.
Got it. Okay,
But we need a motion. I'll make a motion. We remove the cemetery vehicle for 13,000.
all right, second. Motion to remove item number 16 for this year's consideration for capital improvements. Is there any motion by Jared, seconded by me? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is cemetery improvements phase 1. I feel personally that that's something that we need to do. We've been working on
feel-
design.
I feel we need to do it. The public is demanding it. We need to be prepared for the future. The cemetery always appears like it's a slow moving entity, but you can see there's more and more activity out there. So I just want to keep ahead of it.
Well, that's a long-term project too, and we've got to get started. So. Any,
I agree. There's widespread public support for that project.
any other discussion? Okay. We'll leave that in. And then next is the electric vehicles. That's one again, I just don't see us being able to do that this year. Yeah.
So I believe in the electric vehicle project, the grant, hopefully with the grant. I have not seen any. I was hoping we would have seen something from the DOT regarding the electric vehicle grant at this time, but we have not had any communication. What I would hope is that we can bring the grant forward once it comes out, and the council will support that grant, and we will be supporting it in the way that we could fund it when it eventually comes. But the problem is going to be with this, just like the squad cars and the other trucks. Even if we order something, we're not going to get it till 2024 anyway. And it's going to take 6 months for the grant paperwork to come through before we can even order it. So I really want to support the project. I really want to see it done. I think we need to go this route to try something. But due to the limitations of timing, and I don't think we'll have availability to actually spend it next year, I'm going to make a motion to remove the $41,920 for the carbon reduction vehicle grant and move it to next year's capital improvements program.
I'll second. So motion made by Jared, seconded by myself to remove item number 31.
Under discussion, I just want to make a comment. There is, as Jared knows, there's a lot of potential grant money coming for this type of project. And so I'm comfortable removing it, but I just want to raise public awareness that if we gain eligibility for one of these good grants, I hope that Jared doesn't pass on it, that he brings it to council and council reconsiders at whichever time that may be. We can reevaluate our situation.
As part of this, I would request that the council would still be supportive of this grant program.
Agree.
Any other discussion or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to the next page. I think we all were in agreement already on the comprehensive plan from our previous discussion about an hour ago. Which brings us to the next page. Likewise, the police vehicles we've already been committed to, and based on that discussion about an hour ago, I think we're already in agreement. That brings us to the Axon interview room systems. I'm recommending that we remove this with a caveat. So I had a discussion with Chief Ashbeck. He's still waiting on 2022 vehicles to arrive. And when that happens, he'll have the option of auctioning one or two of the older ones. And what I'm thinking we can do, and this would be up to the Common Council and as well, but when that moment comes, is to take whatever funds we have from the vehicle or vehicles, the auctions, and apply it toward that And then use the, whatever is remaining out of the equipment replacement fund to get those interview rooms up to a single standard. That's why even though I say I'm recommending we remove it, I envision this actually happening in 2023. It'd just be later using other funding means. Do you have any concerns with that, Sabrina?
No.
No? Larry?
Still, two of the interview rooms are already recording, right? Three, okay. Yeah.
Did you want to add anything or did I get it right? Okay. So basically you'd be looking at a delay, but it would most likely still happen in 2023.
I would make a motion, we move to 23,100 to less other sources and have it listed as sale of equipment.
Second.
Yes. Replacement fund or,
Well, it would, yeah, it's not going to cover it all. Yeah.
I mean, is it okay if we just remove it in general? And then if
So,
the sale happens, then it would come to council and it would be council's
Just
decision at that time.
unbudgeted. Okay, that's fine. I'll rescind my motion. I'll make a motion if you're,
Sure.
I'll make a motion that we remove item 59, the 23,100 for the Axon interview room system with the caveat that can be brought forward during the year if circumstances warrant.
That'll second.
Yeah, what about the 30,000?
The
Same line?
It's 23-1. Line 59. That's what we're talking.
We committed ARPA money to it last year.
Oh, okay.
He hasn't done it yet.
Oh, I see where 30,000 is. Yes, got it. Okay. All right, so motion made by Jared, seconded by myself to remove item 59. Is there any other discussion? Yes, chief.
I guess to Larry's point, just a point of clarification, so that 6,900 is from this year's ARPA money from the first interview rooms we did. It's leftover money, so the concept would be
Stay there.
that would stay there and carry over into next year, and we'd use that along with the sale of city vehicle and whatnot.
Or maybe
on the
this year.
project. But
I think it would just be sitting there for this year.
correct. Okay, I just wanted to clarify, make sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay, no, yeah, I understand. Sabrina,
I just like to add with ARPA funds, it's not like, it's not like we're bonding. So like, if we do have savings on projects, we don't have to use them for their initial intent. They could be used for other items too. So just so you're aware.
okay,
Like, it's not like with bonding where we say we're gonna bond $1 million towards a road. So then the next year, if there's savings, we have to use it towards the road project. Since it's ARPA funds, we don't have to do that. So just so you're aware.
any other discussion or questions? All right. Motion and second has been made. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, item number 61 on the man lift, 55,000. I'm recommending that we keep that. Is there anyone who disagrees?
With the use says basically used every day. Yeah, it's a high price item.
That and they're tearing up the other one too, so having to transport it all over the place. And
Like you're hearing with the other projects, we've been made aware, when we were looking at this back in July and August, that more than likely, if we're not ordering until January, that this item won't be available till 2024.
okay,
But, we needed to, be able to have it, but that's, this could be a project that we may look for if we can find a good used machine or something to try to get at, but it's with the supply chain issues we're having, this is more than likely not going to be a piece of equipment that we're going to be able to take ownership of until 2024.
Mayor.
So with that being said, I guess I would be okay with taking it out. Another thing Dan, I was gonna say is if needed, maybe you could rent one or something too.
Yeah, it's just the amount of use that we have with it. I would hate to take it out. I know the council's gone on record and borrowed, or told us to order vehicles with not having the funding for it and stuff. I'm not supportive of that either, but I think it's just an item I want everybody to be aware of. that, we get around to, going to, get bids and things on it, it's probably going to be 2024 till we see this piece of equipment.
But you would still need, you're saying you do or do not need the money now?
Well,
though, to
we
order it?
need to have it at some point, I want to be able to
Yeah.
order it as soon as we can so that we can take ownership as,
Yeah,
that, so I would like keeping it in there, but I just want the board to understand it's very well could be 2024 till we're expending those funds.
understand. And so anyone interested in removing that? Okay, let's move on to the next item. Cooling unit number 1 for 10,000. I'm recommending we keep that as well. And the bottom line is they don't have air conditioning part of the building. So is there anyone who's interested in removing that? All right. Next item, plumbing restroom replacement. That would also make the bathroom ADA compliant. It's multiple things they're trying to do with that at once. So recommending we keep that in there for 23,000. Anyone disagree? Is that your hand up, Mayor, or?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, and we've already agreed on the generator.
What about the air handlers?
65.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sorry. I'm recommending that's one that we have to remove. It's just we don't have, if we do keep that, there's a good chance we'll be going into short-term borrowing, which we can do. I know it's loud and that is annoying and not conducive towards getting conferences there.
Can we see where we're at and come back to that one?
Okay, so place that on hold without a decision, okay, and then come back.
I am supportive of that. It is a quality of use of the facility and it's just right end of life, I guess, maintenance wise anyway, so.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with keeping it last time we were there too, but at the same time, yeah, we'll see where we're at. I think we're still gonna have to find some to give. So the generator was a yes. The fire department floor repair, chunks are coming out every day, literally. So I'm recommending we keep that. Is there a reason why that, I know, because all the fire stuff seems to come under a different category. Why can't that be?
I mean, that's a question that I have. I think if we could go back to Baird and ask him on this, I mean, this is actually concrete floor repair. This isn't a carpet or a laminate floor that we're putting in. This is replacing 8 inches of concrete at 8 inches thick, replacing, drains in the floor. I think this one, we should be able to, wouldn't you agree?
Well, there's a lot of stuff. I thought this generator would be
Yeah.
possible too, but since this is in the fire department and we can bond for part of the generator from the fire department, could we bond for this?
Or at least part of it?
Because it's fire department related?
I mean, I can go back to the bond council and ask them. I can email them right away in the morning and go from there.
I mean, I think we just want to make sure we specify it's concrete replacement. We're cutting out concrete, replacing drains. It's part of a plumbing system to, get the salt water and stuff off the trucks.
Yeah, when I was talking with Chief Goody this morning about radios, he gave me a paperweight to hold my papers down. It was a big chunk of concrete. So I'm looking to keep it in, but we may find after, based on a phone call, that we can move some or all of it over into bonding, which would be a better option, I would think. Okay, so we'll move on with the understanding we'll keep it in, but maybe we can move it.
And we are keeping the exterior door. Should we vote on
It's
this?
a reduced amount.
Okay, with the reduced amount. Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Which would be exterior window.
So, yeah.
At this point.
And then, again, I'm not happy about it, Sabrina, but I'm recommending that we have to punt on the ERP as well. I just don't know how we get down to inside the ARPA without it. Yes, Amanda.
I want to speak to this 83 and 85 together. And I think that because it's it's not something outward, it's not something tangible. It gets easy to punt something like this. But we have really a band-aided software system. We have all different departments using all different software. None of it speaks together. It doesn't work together. It doesn't work with our website, quite frankly. And so one, we're behind the times. We're not able to keep up with other municipalities that are able to offer most of their services online. It's our number one request from residents. We're, not able to coordinate anything without spending hours on the phone with our software provider. Every time we need something, it is at least three to five, if not more, thousands of dollars that we're having to spend to get them to upgrade to go with our program because we're running such outdated software. And so I think that this is a very large need that we have here that often gets overlooked because it's the people in this room and it's the people that aren't here today, many of which are hourly staff that spend a great deal of their time that's not being well used because we have outdated software. Additionally, an ERP system will likely significantly reduce the need for some of that software. And so it's going to save operating revenue. I mean, we're going to be able to scale back other software because we have one master system. And so that we would see some savings by investing in updated systems.
Did I hear you say that you kind of can, because I was going to support the upgrade of the city website. You're saying that those are almost bundled? They have to be considered together?
I think that they're both significantly needed. I think the city website is needed for the ADA compliance as well as user friendliness. But if we don't move forward with our software, we'll never be able to have a website that provides the functionality because the website is going to have to speak to whatever system we're using, correct? Like they have to be able to work together. So if I want to be able to get my permits online, I'm going to use the website as the mechanism, but it has to speak to our software to make that happen. And we don't have the software to do that right now.
I'm going to recommend that we treat this then like we did the air handlers and just kind of keep it in for now and see where we're at.
I think it's I have various staff, either you do utility billing or we interact with the software a lot. We've already committed 100,000 to it last year. We've got part of the utilities paying for it because it is part of the utilities with the utility billing software. And I think it's just something I think our finance staff over the years may not have pushed for a system when probably it should have replaced 5 years ago, to be honest. I think it's as Amanda has said, it looks like it's something that's out there, but I think it's a need. I really do.
I'll just leave it in for now, see where we're at. Okay.
At this point, yes.
The website, again, I was planning on recommending that today anyways. Anyone want to remove it? And I do think that we can remove the fob door handlers.
That's one that we can, I'll make a motion that we remove item 86, the fob door handlers at the Omni Center.
I'll second it. Okay.
Could that be reduced to just?
No, if we reduce it any, it's not gonna, we need so many doors done in that facility that I'd rather do one project up there. I think it's needed. I think there's so many keys over the years and just with the way their systems work of locker rooms and transient populations through there. It'd be so nice to have a fob system that they could just not have to worry about keys, but as we know, we're all making choices here, so.
I agree. It's something that needs to happen. I just, when you weigh it in priority with what's left on this list, it's just hard to keep it. But yeah, key control is a nightmare when you're using physical keys, that's for sure. So, all right. Okay, so where do we sit then?
We need to vote.
No, well, I need to,
Vote?
what's that?
No, we didn't vote.
We need to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so we have a motion by Jared, seconded by myself to remove item number 86. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed. Motion passes.
Thank you. Can we take a little break? Well.
Oh, okay.
Reorganizes the numbers.
Yeah, we need some more calculation anyway. So I got 8:20. If we could be back at 8:30, that'd be great. You bet. All right,
We go.
our 14-minute, 10-minute break is over.
It was much needed though. Thank you.
Okay, so once again, where do we stand on the other borrowing totals right now?
So our other borrowing total is 1 million. Sorry, I'll turn my mic on. So our other borrowing total right now is $1,132,000, $132,067. So if we are committing $950 of ARPA funding, based on the change we've made prior, that would mean that we would need to have $182,067 in short-term borrowing. Right now for bonding, we are at $3,515,779. Granted, that could change. I will reach out to bond counsel to see if that $75,000 for the fire department concrete floor can be transitioned into bonding,
Which would increase the bonding.
which would increase the bonding to, sorry, my computer, 1 second.
I get 3,590,770.
That is correct. $3,590,779, which would then be short-term borrowing of $107,067, where we're standing currently.
Okay. So let's look through. Is there anything else that we can recommend we not do? I mean, the only thing that even comes close to eliminating that additional is the ERP, but we've heard that plea. It sounds like that there's not a lot of traction to eliminate that. I mean, I'm looking at this, I mean, nickel and diming this would be very tough to get there. There's,
The generator is such a large portion of.
yeah, it is, but I mean, I think we're all in agreement that it's past due, we get that, we have got to get it. Yeah, other than that, we're already committed on the police vehicles. I think everyone is in agreement that we have got to move on the comprehensive plan. The only other high dollar item then is the ERP. So if we don't eliminate, then we're looking at a short-term loan or a short-term borrowing of either 182.67 or 107.67. Depending on the results of that phone call. Is that something we're willing to do?
I look at the projects that are listed and I just go back to the even 2 years ago. A lot of these projects, we probably would have had estimates in here for just over $300 or 3 million. So we're still not getting, even if we are at that 3,700,000, I think you're really only getting present or rear value of 3.2 million. So at some point, we can't keep the same number forever neither. I get that, that we have to have constraints, but I think what you have in here is a very good list of projects that are all worthy. That's the reason we're having difficulties trying to find one to pick out.
Yeah, this is the hard time. I mean, it's like that every year when we get down to trying to figure out how to fit the last widget into that last hole. I mean, we're all on projects now that I think we're all in agreement really need to stay, but so the decision we have to make is, are we going to pass and recommend to the common council that we do between $100,000 and $200,000 in short-term borrowing or not? And if the answer is no, then we got to cut some. I mean, the only thing I even see here that's an option would be the ERP. Yeah, but I know there's not a lot of traction on that.
I mean, I think if you eliminate it, I feel like I'm in a tough spot because it is my system. So if you eliminate it, I mean, we have already committed some funds to it from 2021, or sorry, the 2022 CIP budget. I guess my hope would be that if you did cut it, that we could, still move forward with the project and possibly come to council with an exact dollar figure of what additional dollars we need to fund the project, to look at systems.
I just really don't think that's a good idea. I mean, we've been talking about this for years.
Yeah, it was on last year. I don't know that it was on before that, but yeah, we have been talking about this in the past, though, for sure. And I think last year, this is one that made it all the way up to the last cut too, and it was eliminated at pretty
Yeah,
much the same stage where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also point out that we're, as I stated before, we're probably 5 years behind. It probably should have been brought up 3 years before it was brought up. But
Yeah.
Yeah, most systems are on the cloud. So I even looked at our current provider, and they mentioned not a huge increase to move to their cloud server, but the operating cost on a yearly basis would be more because we'd be on the cloud versus an on-prem system. So we're definitely behind.
So this is going to be the last year of the, I guess, the good times of the ARPA money, because we're going to be spent out now with the exception of that 280,000 dedicated toward the legacy project. So next year, it's going to be much more difficult to find other borrowing needed. We're going to have to be very cognizant of, how much we're willing to spend on short-term borrowing. In the past, prior to receiving the ARPA chunk, what were we averaging basically every year on short-term loans?
I think it was dependent on the year. Let me.
Yeah, and of course I
I
had that
can look
printout, but I didn't
typically
bring it.
300,000 to 600,000 depending on the year. It was
Yeah.
going up as we went along, but if you look at the squad cars alone, we're at 225,000 every year, just squad cars.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's what we'll be down to again next year. Yes, Amanda.
I guess just on that note, I would add that if we're going to do it and we're going to short-term borrow this year, I think this is a noble cause to do it for. It's a project that is going to constantly compete against needs such as squad cars, and that's a hard competition for something like a software. And as Sabrina said, we're seeing all of our outside entities as well update their software. The county has gone to a new tax system. Every time that happens, we have to pay to update our system to work with that outside system. And it's just, I think we're throwing good money after bad software. And we've been doing it for quite a few years, quite frankly. And so, every year we do this, the technology gets even more outdated and it's just going to be harder to catch up. I mean, as Jared said, that really this project should have happened 5 years ago. We're not in a position with a finance director at that point that was willing to
Okay.
invest at that point in their career in new software.
All right. Well, so Mayor.
I was just gonna say, of course, end of the day, it's gonna be a council decision.
Yep.
But right here tonight, I mean, my first choice would be to engage in the short-term borrowing. And then if a choice had to be made to cut something out before and not to, everybody's project, I think needs to be in there, and I prefer to short-term borrow. So I'm gonna say that first. But if we did need to cut something out, I would cut out the money that we had set aside for the police vehicle and the lift before I did the finance ERP software program.
Which you're talking the unmarked? You said the police vehicle?
No, the fire, the command vehicle for the fire department,
Well, that's bonded though.
which we reduced, oh. Okay.
That was under bonded.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's something that, I mean, we could have a discussion with the ERP system, whether that goes to equipment replacement fund, if we didn't want to borrow. But I mean, then that increase is that, so I mean, if we're stuck on the borrowing piece,
Well, it's a smaller sum than in the past
is.
years by far.
and I did look it up, in 2020, we borrowed 542,000. In prior years before that, one was 250,000, one was 440,000. Looks like we started borrowing from the state trust fund loan in 2013.
So
We did in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17. Looks like 18, we took a year off, and then 19, 20, and 21.
So a mean average would be approximately around 350,000-ish.
Yeah.
Right.
I have the
I'm
notes.
gonna recommend we go forward to the council with all these projects remaining in, which means that the recommendation is gonna be short-term borrowing for either 182.67 or 107.67, depending on the fire department floor result. And we can always have that discussion as a whole council then as well. That,
I'm a little bit of an optimist. With the budget surplus that the state has right now. Hoping next year that have additional funds to do some of these projects that we have.
yeah, I don't
$3
know.
billion in the budget right now.
I know there's some of us who've been asking questions about that, and so far we haven't gotten an answer that we like.
You won't until after next Tuesday.
No answers until after next week.
Yeah, so,
I'm an optimist, so.
oh, okay. Well, I hope you're right. All right, so,
I'll second your motion.
well, I didn't make it as a motion, but okay, so I move that we approve the remaining projects on this list. So, and Amanda or Sabrina, if you could do the totals, just make sure we got it right. The official.
So we would bond for $3,515,779. The other borrowing is $1,132,067, with $950,000 of that being ARPA. And then dependent on what we find out with the police floor.
Fire floor.
Keep saying police, I'm sorry, it's late. With the fire repair of the flooring, we would either short-term borrow $182,067 or $107,067. The only thing that I would like to add is in regards to what items to use for ARPA versus short-term borrowing. Are you okay if I work with our contact at Bayard to decide which items really should we borrow for and items that should go to ARPA between that total? Do you feel comfortable with
State
that?
that again?
So we have this other borrowing line
Yeah.
and we know that 950,000 is gonna go, we're gonna use dollars for ARPA.
Yeah.
For each item, we didn't indicate, oh, this is ARPA, this item is short-term
Oh.
borrowing. Are you comfortable with me working with our contact to say which items truly should go to the bond?
Yes.
More information, the more information. Yeah.
Well, they're gonna have to do a line item. What's borrowed, what's ARPA money.
Because likely what they're gonna say is the police vehicles, like just make that your short-term borrowing. That would be my guess, because that's something,
Single line item.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So again, so my motion is approving all with the figures and numbers as stated with Sabrina, which is the understanding that the difference in short-term borrowing would be based on that fire department floor, but that if we can do that, that means that's going to increase the bonding by that 75,000 also. So that's my motion.
Second.
Seconded by Larry. Okay. Any further discussion? I'll talk to you later. All right. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, so we have a capital improvements budget going forward to common council. Item number 6B, setting the date and time of the public hearing on the capital improvements budget. I'll go over to the city administrator to see what we look at on calendars. As far as,
I would say the next Board of Public Works meeting is December 6th, and that should be the date of the proposed capital improvements.
Okay.
Budget hearing.
I'll make a motion that we set the public hearing for the next Board of Public Works meeting on December, you said 6th?
Correct.
All right, thank you, Jared. December 6th.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are now on to pay estimates. It's the last item inside of your packet. What's that? It'd be during the normal capital
Yeah,
improvement budget at
6:30 PM.
But thank you. Yeah. Okay, so public, we have the pay estimates, do not have any addendums on this, so it is 10 items.
And items.
I move we approve the 10 items listed on our pay estimates dated November 1st, 2022.
I'll second. Okay, motion made by the mayor, seconded by myself to approve the pay estimates, 10 items as posted. Are there any discussion or question items? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we move on to the utilities portion of the agenda, and there is no report, which brings us on to item 9, which is I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
A second.
Motion made to adjourn by Alder Jurassic
50.
at 8:50 and seconded by Sabrina. And do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned, and yes, it is 8:50.